To Make It Explicit, April 18, 2019 by Anna von Reitz. Dear Mr. Trump. We are running a country. You are running a corporation. These are two completely different jurisdictions. One is actual and factual, the other exists in the la land of legal fictions. The incorporated entities may not overcome the corporate entities, and the corporate entities may not overcome the actual and factual. To assert otherwise is to assert that the creation is greater than the creator, in violation of maxim of law and universal law. We are the civilian, not civil, government to which the federal contractors owe 100% of their good faith service. If anyone in the Joint Chiefs has been clueless enough to mistake the municipal, civil government for the civilian government that they have taken an oath to defend against all enemies foreign and domestic, it's time they learned the truth, isn't it? We, the employers, the American states and people, have been outrageously imposed upon, presumed upon, and suffered at the hands of our own employees and subcontractors. We have been deliberately mischaracterized and impersonated, and then, just as deliberately misidentified as enemies, in a bogus and self-interested commercial mercenary war. Pretending that the territorial states of states and the municipal states of states are anything but franchise operations of foreign corporations won't work anymore. They are not actual states. They are not sovereign entities. They are not populated by people, only by persons. All the tomiro has to end. We are doing our part. We are clicking our ruby slippers and we are returning home, having never been aware that we were absent, and having never had the opportunity to take exception to the unconscionable private contracts being made for us, all absent full disclosure to our mothers or at any time to us, of course, and beginning when we were still babies in our cradles. The shame and infamy that naturally accrues to the men responsible for these practices is incalculable. The systematic and institutionalized criminality that this circumstance presents is without precedent in the modern world. It is quite a surprise to most Americans to find out that what appeared to be their own beloved government is nothing but a pile of European shills and criminals in American clothing, and that our beloved military is part of the problem and the plot. One of the duties we expect the military we pay for to perform is to protect us from racketeering and inland piracy in the name of municipal United States persons. We also expect them to protect us against interstate and interjurisdictional bank fraud and economic warfare. We wish for all these municipal courts to be closed down and for the municipal government to be strictly limited as it is supposed to be. We wish for the decisions of these courts to be uniformly overturned for fraud and for lack of jurisdiction in each and every case wherein Americans have been mistaken for enemies and as municipal citizens or cast into the role of presumed territorial volunteers magically made responsible for paying the debts of these citizens, either. We wish for the jails to be cleared out and all the Americans who have been incarcerated under color of law based on constructive fraud and deliberately falsified commercial claims and contracts sent home. That means every nonviolent criminal convicted of evading federal taxes that they never actually owed, everyone convicted of thought crimes, everyone convicted of statutory infractions, all the marijuana cases, all of those who were victimized by this national-level identity theft need to be sent home. We wish for all federal liens against American assets belonging to actual Americans who have been unconscionably mischaracterized as U.S. citizens of any stripe to be released with prejudice. We wish for all foreclosures against Americans who are not actually, knowingly, and voluntarily U.S. citizens to be stopped with prejudice. Municipal persons were arbitrarily conferred upon us via unconscionable contract when we were still babies in our cradles, owing in part to improper assumptions and actions taken by the military to register our lawful persons as legal persons, specifically, as British territorial United States citizens. All over America, bewildered Americans are being attacked under false pretenses and under color of law. Their homes are being stolen. They are being mischaracterized and impersonated as tenants, not recognized as landlords. They are being sued in the guise of municipal persons and prevented from accessing the credit that they are owed by the Department of Defense, Division of Fiscal Services and other federal departments and subcontractors and franchises. There is no excuse for the continuance of this gross breach of trust and criminality. Over $21 trillion in credit is owed to the American states and people by DoD, but that's the tip of the iceberg. It's time for those responsible for this gigantic cluster up to pay off and pay up, and yes, we do mean the Queen and the Pope. not the American states. Not the American people. We wish for specific lawful and agreed-upon remedy, spelled out in plain English, established with simple and honest instructions and processes, that average people can grasp and use to secure the recognition of their lawful persons, and obtain the security of all persons associated with them, as guaranteed by our actual Constitution. We wish for the end of obstruction of justice and collusion in withholding justice from the American people by the FBI, the various attorney generals, the for-hire corporate court systems, and other private incorporated law enforcement agents and agencies. We wish them to be fired and off our payrolls, permanently without contracts, not eligible for rehire. We wish for the owners and operators of these corporations, men like George Soros, to be identified and blacklisted so that they can never be associated with any corporation offering governmental services on our soil again. We wish for their service contracts to be severed with prejudice, and with no revolving door allowing them to ever occupy any position of public trust again. We wish for the prosecution of those men responsible for the ambush and murder of Lavoy Finicum, an American rancher on his way to a public meeting on a public road. We wish the FBI to be hung out to dry for their part in falsifying evidence and misleading local sheriffs and promoting fraud upon the courts against the Finicum family and the Bundy family and other Americans who were shamefully, tragically abused by these misdirected private subcontractors acting under color of law. That's right, we do actually know that the Federal Bureau of Investigation is as federal as Federal Express. Just like the so-called Federal Reserve. We wish for the FBI and its private parent corporation doing business as the government of the United States to be dismantled as crime syndicates engaged in fraud, racketeering, extortion, political destabilization, insurrection, conspiracy against the constitutions, conspiracy against the American states and people, and virtually every other crime up to and including premeditated murder. The boards of directors need to be held to account for their parts in the atrocities they have promoted. We wish for the specific law enforcement officers who were responsible for the ambush and murder of Lavoy Finicum to face charges for premeditated murder and reckless endangerment, false arrest and detainment, violation of Finicum's natural and unalienable right to life and liberty, criminal conspiracy and every other indictment they are heir to. We wish for all the Department of Justice officials and FBI and other agency personnel who have in any way politicized their positions of public trust to be gone from our sight. Their entire departments and agencies may be scrapped and the personnel responsible fired, not eligible for rehire by any governmental department, agency or subcontractor for the rest of their lives. We wish for the IRS to be gone, too. We wish for these officers of the Church Inquisition, acting as bill collectors under color of law, to be ousted out of the Treasury Department, and removed from our shores. We wish for every U.S. tax court decision made against Americans on the basis of false impersonation, identity theft, and mischaracterization to be overturned, including all commercial liens tainted by these venal practices. We wish for a sane, safe, and orderly means and process by which average people who have been victimized can come forward and have all such liens, mortgages, and other merely presumed debts and obligations removed with prejudice and recognized as odious debts. We wish for the betrayal of public trust to be prosecuted and punished in public, so that public employees take heed. We don't hire them to make our decisions for us, to be political running dogs, or run military ops on us. Neither do we pay them to be brainless automatons obeying immoral and illegal orders just because someone said so. We wish the individuals responsible for all these and many more outrageous trespasses to be indicted, arrested, tried, and served justice for their crimes. This is not vengeance. This not public policy. It's the actual public law. We wish for the quasi-military territorial states of states to establish and make available travel cards so that our people can go about their business secure in the possession of their own private unregistered vehicles, unhindered in their private pursuits, and not presumed to be engaged in interstate commerce. We wish for these travel cards to be made readily available and advertised and delivered with no strings attached. We wish for an end to the unlawful conversion of our assets, including our land assets, under the false presumption that we are either United States citizens or citizens of the United States of any kind. We are landlords, not tenants. We are nationals of our states, not residents. Most of us have been here for many generations and were grandfathered in before the Civil War. We wish for an end to the unconscionable contracting processes that have sought to form contracts with babies in their cradles. We wish for you to stop the illegal and immoral of registration of babies born in this country, and also wish for the prosecution of all corporations engaged in this white-collar form of kidnapping, enslavement, securitization of living babies and impersonation of Americans. We wish for the members of the Securities and Exchange Commission to be sacked, arrested, and subjected to trial for corruption, usurpation, dereliction of duty, negligence, criminal malfeasance, and breach of trust, along with the entire senior staff operating the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. We wish for the arrest and indictment of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors and the nationalization of all assets in their possession or otherwise under their control. We wish for Goldman Sachs and Merrill Lynch to be liquidated as crime syndicates. We wish for DTTC and Seed & Company and all the associated web of banks and brokers and investors and insurance companies to be nationalized, and all the assets secured and returned to the rightful owners. We wish for clear communications to be issued to the state of state governors and the state of state secretaries of state, informing them that they are not actually functioning as states, have no immunity as states, and that as legal persons they cannot and do not represent the lawful people of this country. We wish for them, the state of state governors and state of state secretaries of state, to be instructed to recognize American state nationals and American state citizens as third parties and lawful persons operating outside their inchoate state of state jurisdiction, and also instructing them to stop trespassing against our people on the basis of their own false presumptions. We wish for them, the state of state governors and state of state secretaries of state, their staff, their legislators, their for-hire jurists and all their subcontractors to cease and desist inappropriate, unlawful, illegal, disrespectful and insubordinate behavior toward those of us who are in fact their employers and whose states are parties to the constitutions. We wish for prompt correction and recognition that the states of states now operating are simply franchises of foreign corporations, not essentially different from any other foreign corporation operating franchises on our shores, and also recognition of the fact that they are subject to liquidation and/or nationalization if they willfully engage in racketeering and other criminal acts against Americans. This especially applies to the role of states in enforcing bogus evictions, foreclosures, and tax liens. We wish for all personnel to know that they are 100% commercially and criminally liable for such actions. We wish for the respect, care, and consideration that is due every American, and without that there can be no solid or rational basis for going forward. Legal fictions can't rule the roost. The tail can't really wag the dog. And the American people and our actual states are still the lawful persons who are party to the controlling Constitution allowing the existence of these corporations on our soil. Otherwise, the members of the territorial and municipal congresses and the joint chiefs of staff and all the smug and the ignorant bureaucrats that have been employed by the unauthorized alphabet soup agencies need to be looking for new jobs. Let the arrests of the perpetrators begin. Let the innocent be set free and let the jails be filled with the actual criminals.